I'm a huge fan of foldable phones. I own a Mate X2. And up until now, this for me had the best hardware that you could get for a foldable, right? But of course, we've now got the new top dog, which is the Vivo X Fold. This phone, in my now couple of days testing it out, is absolutely fantastic. And I'll run you through the unboxing, hands-on, in a bit of depth here, take a look at the camera performance and an overall detailed first impressions of this foldable and why I think this now has the best hardware. So of course, it converts from being a phone into a tablet, 8 inches when you open it up. Both screens 120 Hertz, both of them have in-screen fingerprint readers, and it does have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, which is powering all of this. And it even has a periscope camera too, with the camera set up on the back. It's some seriously impressive hardware in a complete package. So I got this Vivo X Fold from Trading Shenzhen. I buy a lot of tech from these guys. They are really good. It took about 10 days to get here from China to Spain and no taxes to pay on it. So they did also include a power adapter, which I'm not showing. And let's get this unboxed. So you can see there it's got some Zeiss branding because of the lenses. The optics is Zeiss, and it's also got their special coating on it. The X Fold in its open state, so just like the Z Fold 2 and the Z Fold 3, they come in the open state there. So we have this little compartment. It's very nice actually. The top here, it's like a fake leather suede finish to it. And nice presentation here of the extras we do get. So the charger, this has, oh look at that, 2 Type-C ports on it and 80 watts, and it's a flick out. So 2-prong China or US style. That's why I've got the adapter. And then we do get some, what is this? Some headphones right here. Those will be Type-C, of course. So NES style. Good to have. And what else? An X Fold little card there. Don't know what that is. Some VIP thing. SIM tray tool and a little bit of paperwork. And then our cable. So that's the Type-C to Type-C cable for charging it, of course, and reasonably good length to that. Okay, so the outer screen here, this one is 6.53 inches and it's 21:9 aspect ratio. So it's a normal standard aspect ratio. It's not like a skinny Fold, Z Fold 2, Z Fold 3 or something funny like that. So fingerprint reader here works really well. And this is what is really good. So imagine if you've got it locked and you open it up, there's also an inner fingerprint reader. So pressing that, it unlocks, and it's exactly the same, I think, tech as the outer one, so really good. So we're presented now with the just over 8-inch screen, which is 8.03 inches. Now the resolution of this is 1916 by 2160, so it looks sharp, and it is 120 Hertz. It's very, very fluid, as you can imagine it would be at 120 Hertz. And when you close the screen, it will then close the phone. But I do believe through the configuration, you can set it up so to pull up whatever app you're in to then resize it or reload it onto the outer screen. So it can still be used then, of course, as a normal phone. And that fingerprint reader, I just wanted to test that again. It is very good. Now, a lot of you probably won't know this, but the Huawei Mate X2 is my secondary phone as a main phone. I use 2 phones, an iPhone 13 Pro Max and then this. This is my phone of choice normally, and look at just how similar these are. It's almost like Vivo with the X Fold here went and just copied, almost cloned, what we have with the Mate X2. So very similar, the thickness of them, both of them. So when the X Fold is closed here, it's 14.6 millimeters, the thickness, not including the camera bump, and unfolded, it is then 6.3. So it's quite thin like this, as you can see, and then we do have the buttons on the side. If my camera would focus, there we go, a button there and the volume up and down. They're made out of metal, very good feel to them, so curved here. Then on the back we have this vegan leather, and I do like the look of this with then our camera module. So main 50 megapixel camera, f1.8. I've used this one in the X80 Pro Plus that I used to have. Periscope, they managed to fit that in, but also the Huawei does have a periscope camera there too. So that's why they're a little bit similar, even though, okay, different designs here with the camera modules. Ultra-wide's 48 megapixels and a 12 megapixel 2x optical. So it's no slouch in the camera department. 16 megapixel camera here on the outside, then the inside. Now, this feels very good, giving that a bit of a flex. I don't want to, bend it or anything like that, but it's solid. The opening mechanism feels great. It's spring-loaded to a certain point. about when you first open it up. Now, the good thing about it is the crease, the fold, you don't really see it. Now, at certain angles, I'll get it to show. Now, the longer you have it open, the less you do actually see the fold with it. And you can see why I say it looks like it's cloned, or they've cloned this right here, which is the Mate, because the Mate is just so similar. The design of the screen, the folding mechanism feels very similar, and not much of a crease there. Running your finger over it, you don't really feel it that much. And then the border around the outside, flat. When you close it, it is flat, just like what we have with the Vivo, the same style border, closed, flat again. And here at the bottom, you see we've got a loudspeaker, Type-C. Now, I haven't been able to get video output from this, and I'm not too sure why. I do believe it supports it. We've got our SIM tray, which is 2 nano SIMs, antenna lines, and all a metal frame, and it's very good. And in fact, it looks better than the Huawei Mate X2, I think, when it's closed. So this so far is the top hardware when it comes to foldables. Of course, with that Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 that's in it. I'll show you a few benchmarks later on. IR transmitter, mic there, and then the loudspeaker. So very good quality, both of these. Yes, they are chunky when they're folded, but that's, of course, the trade-off you have. You've got a phone and a tablet in one. Now, we do have a slider switch on the side of it too, which is really good. So you flick that down, you can then go into silent mode, flick it up, and you're out of silent mode. That's really good and handy to have. I like that they've done that. So side by side, again with that Mate X, you can see the displays on both, to me, look stunning. Why are they so good? Well, because they don't have the glass over them, but that thin layer of glass, they just have such a good contrast to them that you have really just unmatched visuals compared to a phone with the glass over the top, say Gorilla Glass. Now, the 120 hertz versus 90, I don't notice too much. I'm quite a big fan of 90 hertz on this model because it's that perfect combination between battery saving and fluidity. Here, you can force it onto the 60, but there's no 90 hertz option. You'll see under the display here, when I just get into that, here we go, display and brightness, you've got the option to just force it onto 120, but no 90 or smart switch. So smart switch only goes between 60 and 120, but I would have preferred that 90, which is really good. Now, I'll give you a close-up here of the screen. You can see it's very good, very clear, although there's some funny analyzing happening. That's just with my camera and lens. But it's a great, stunning-looking screen. Very good. Animations don't seem to show any lag. And with the Mate X2, the same story here. It is a very good screen, and I really do like them. And it's just that notch, running my finger over it, barely feel it. And I'll say with the Vivo, it's about the same. In fact, maybe a little bit more. But when it's unfolded, as I mentioned before, and you leave it a long time, the fold seems to pop up even more, and you just really don't see it, especially looking at them straight on. So this hardware is superior to the Z Fold 2 and, of course, the Z Fold 3, which are almost identical. And if you're concerned about whether this model is going to work with 5G, in Europe at least, I can test out here. My SIM card is with Orange, and I don't have a problem here with 5G. It's working fine, and even 4G with LTE Band 20, so it does seem to have global bands. That's good news. The software, this has always been the big problem for me with Vivo. Their software is a bit funny, so there's a lot of bloatware that you first get on it. Some things, like these widgets that they do have, which they like to call nano kits. That's the name for them. So this business one here, I don't want it, okay? So I want to go and remove it. Okay, how do I remove it? I want to delete it. Okay, drag, delete this, remove. No. So some things it doesn't want you to remove. I just can't seem to remove a few of the widgets, the applications, and that's kind of annoying to me. The same for the apps, the app drawer here, because if I go into this and say I don't want the kids mode here or Jovi Voice, which is their AI thing, and that's some of the Chinese apps. So, okay, gonna hold it down and then put it into a folder. No, you can't do that either with the software. The other thing is the scaling. Now, look at the scaling here of Google Play Store. So yes, it does work with Google Play, and it works fine. The performance is really good. You can scale the font size, but you can't scale the DPI. So imagine I wanted to set it to a smaller DPI. It's just not possible. So a lot of restrictions with the software. So I'm on the latest firmware, and it's Origin OS. It's based on Android 12. So there's no restrictions with Google. There's no problems with that like you get, of course, with the Mate X2. One of the reasons to go for it. There's been 2 big firmware updates. Optimize the UI and some of it, but yeah. So when you first get it out of the box here, my one that I got from trading Shenzhen, so of course shipped out of China. This is meant for only the domestic market, so it's not an international release. That is why we have all these bloatware apps, and it takes a long time, so you can remove about 70% of the apps, and you're left with those others. As I mentioned before, you're kind of stuck with it. So it gets a whopping huge score here when it comes to Antutu, so over 1 million points there. That's really good. Fantastic performance. Probably aided by the fact that it does have a larger space, of course. It can dissipate that heat much better than a phone. That's how they're able to achieve that. But look at the temperatures. Whoa, it went up almost 10 degrees Celsius. And it cost me 7% battery just from that benchmark run. So, yeah. Battery life does seem the weakness too of these devices. That's always been the way. The Fold, I only got about 5.5 hours on-screen time. This is looking like about 5 hours too. Internal storage, just my quick little initial test here, shows that, yep, it's fast. 256 gigabytes. Whoa, very quick there, good speeds. It does support Wi-Fi level 1. I've got Amazon installed, and to my eyes, yeah, it's only in standard definition. Netflix, I haven't tested that out yet. Might be in full HD. You definitely want it with the screen like this. Now, I'm going to mention it because probably people are going to say, well, what about this? Okay, the front cutout there, well, the cutout inner one. Why is it not in the middle here? Well, for obvious reasons, when you fold that phone, there's no way they could have the camera in the middle there with a mechanism. Okay, so that's why it's to one side. It bothered me in the beginning quite a bit, especially coming from this really nice looking screen with no annoying cutout or anything. To then look at that, it was bothersome, and it's taken me a while to kind of ignore it now, which I can do. But it's not really too much of an issue there. So benchmarks, those are the just initial first benchmarks there, that it's fast, it's a monster, but the battery life is going to be an issue. Now, the keyboard of it, what's it like to type on? So it's taking up half of the screen here. I can resize this. So I'm using Gboard from Google. You can use the Vivo keyboard. That's there, and it's an option, of course, and it's probably better designed actually for this. So here it works fine, and I do find the haptics are great. The sound of it does sound good. So I'm just going to search here, YouTube, and typing on it. Oh, typo from me just there. Bring that up. That's pretty quick. And what about the outer screen? So swap over to that. And use the keyboard just again to show you that it's better actually on the outer screen, that keyboard. Now for a quick audio test, comparing it to the Mate X2, and why this model, because that's the only foldable that I do own. I sold my Fold 3, sold the Fold 2. Now YouTube performance here, very smooth, the scrolling on the outer screen with the X Fold, and then the Mate X2. Well, I'm in a different one here, but yes, I am running Google on this, well, Google Apps, and it's using some app called G-Space. This is the YouTube app, works fine, but I want to listen to the speakers, of course, here. So I'll test first the X Fold, then the X2, and we'll have a listen. So the X Fold speakers with the Vivo here, they're a little bit richer sounding, better bass, slightly flatter sounding with the Huawei Mate X2, not as good bass, and the volume I think maybe a tad louder on the Huawei. That's the only complaint really. I wish it was a little louder here, the X Fold speakers, but they do sound good. And I like the fact when I touch the outer screen, see how it's not rocking about when I touch the Mate X2 here, you can see that it rocks about a little bit. Multitasking on the X Fold 2 is great. So you can have just apps in little windows and drag them around wherever you want and still do things in the background. You can then run certain apps if it's supported too in split screen. For example, I'm going to have YouTube on one side. So you need to go up here. Sorry, I need to select that correctly and go to split screen. All right, now it's going to move it over to one side. And then launch something else. Whatever else I want, I can do that. So DRM info, bring that up. So it's basically like having two phone screens side by side. I can drag this and resize that as needed. And it's all pretty good, the performance. But again, it's going to depend on the app. And you can see you do get these options that you can move them back and forth. So multitasking, definitely good. This is one of the key reasons I think to go for a foldable versus a normal phone, is you just got all that extra real estate. And I personally use my foldable phone the Mate X2 as a tablet a lot, and I don't even touch my tablets anymore because foldables, for me, they're the future. And then when you're done, fold it up, put it in your pocket, and of course, it's just a phone if you want it to be. Very brief look now at what it's like to game on the X Fold here. So this game is Call of Duty. It's in a multiplayer game here. I do believe it's up against some bots here. And it looks really good. Very immersive. The speakers sound great because I do have them either side here at the top. Now I could flip it around and play it like that, but to me it's more comfortable having the vegan leather back here, the camera module, and controlling it this way. It's quite comfortable, and of course this game fully scales and runs a resolution with an aspect ratio that does match the screen. So really immersive. PUBG also scales up and looks just fine on this phone, and it's running really well. Again, really immersive experience, and I've lost almost all my health here. I'm probably going to die. Again, it's just to give you a quick preview. I do believe someone's chasing after me here. Excellent performance. Now, it's the ultra frame rate option. That's all I get. Unfortunately, not 120 frames per second. That's not available to us. Hopefully, the developers will add this, and this being, of course, a Chinese phone, I'm pretty sure they will later on. You can also download the HD or Ultra HD pack for it too, but you won't be able to exceed that 60 frames per second cap. But even at 60, it feels good, nice and smooth. Looking down the sides here, it's great performance. Now this is the outer screen's front-facing camera, and you can see that it shakes around. Why is that? Well, it doesn't have any electronic image stabilization, so it is exactly like the Vivo X70 Pro Plus, and even the Vivo X80, I believe, does not have electronic image stabilization with the front-facing camera. Looks a little bit overexposed at times, however, there is a fix. That, just like the Galaxy Z Fold 2 and 3, you can use the rear cameras if you fold it open and as selfie cameras now. So you get the 4K 30, 4K 60 electronic and optical image stabilization of the main sensor, and also you can use the ultra wide too, and even 8K if you wanted to. So that's why I'm not too fussed about the outer and inner selfie cameras not having electronic image stabilization. So for video, we do have 4K 30, 4K 60, 8K 30 is the top resolution you can shoot. So this is with the main camera. Now you either have to shoot first with the ultra wide or the main camera. You cannot swap over to the ultra wide then the main camera. So any zoom that I do apply now is digital, and it doesn't swap over to the 2x camera there when I go 2x digital zoom. That's 3x, and this is now 4x digital zoom here. So we've got optical and electronic image stabilization with that main 50 megapixel sensor. I'm just going to zoom right back here. 2x now, and back to the main camera. The stabilization, just jog ahead. It is quite steady, and the audio bit rate is 156 kilobits per second. Now as I pan around, video seems smooth, but I can see occasionally a few little judders coming in as the exposure changes. This is now our ultra wide camera, so you get 4K 30, 4K 60, but no 8K with this 48 megapixel camera. Now it's using electronic image stabilization, the ultra wide. It doesn't have that micro gimbal tech. Hopefully that's coming in the X80 Pro Plus. When Vivo does release it, I will try and review that one as well. But good electronic image stabilization here. So it looks like my Huawei Mate X2 might be replaced. This phone, hardware-wise, fantastic, and I think Samsung, they're gonna have a tough time beating this. They might have an IP rating, or they could have the stylus. They probably will have the stylus, of course, which this is lacking. But this phone, if you're not a stylus user, it simply has it all. Hardware-wise, fantastic. The screens, both of them. Now, battery life, it's looking like the, well, bad point of foldables, and that's always been the case. Like the Z Fold 2 and the Z Fold 3, I only got around 6 hours, well, normally actually about 5 hours of on-screen time. 6 would be me really taking it easy with brightness. Now this is looking about the same. It's looking about a 5.5 hour battery time with it. Now I do manage with the 90 Hz screens and the more efficient, I think, Kirin processor that's in the Huawei Mate X2, I managed to get 6 hours, sometimes 6.5 out of this one, a little bit more than what I believe you'll be able to get out of this phone here. So battery life is not wonderful. Now it really just boils down to me, one thing that's going to be a bit of a learning curve and a bit of a pain, to be honest. That's the software with this. As I pointed out, there's quite a few quirks there. The fact that you can't hide some things. There's a lot of Chinese apps there that are a bit of a pain. You can't really change the scaling of it. Some apps look a little too big, the DPI, so you can't really lower that down. But apart from that, wow, I am blown away. This is a fantastic foldable phone here from Vivo. Well done. They've really done it. Thanks a lot for watching this hands-on and unboxing of the X Fold.